Hello everybody, and in this video we're going to be doing the SolidState box, which was on Hack the Box and is now on VulnHub for you to do. And it's honestly my favorite box. It's probably one of the top 5 boxes I've ever done. And if you're looking for something that's like the PWK and OSCP, this is one of the best boxes to do. I don't know why Apache doesn't have it on its suggested VMs. So anyway, let's dive right into it. It features a really cool exploit and a really cool jail escape. So I run a net discover. It's grabbed this IP .132. So we're going to go ahead and run a port scan. Sorry about that. Capital SV. And just to quickly talk about port scanning techniques, one thing you could do is just include these two options, and then when it returns the list of open ports, just scan the open ports for the version and the for the service version. It could be a little faster, but it doesn't really matter. Personal preference. So this will probably be SSH, this will probably be SMTP, POP3, web server, unknown, and unknown. I don't know either of those offhand, so let's check out the web server while we wait for that port scan to finish. It's always a good idea to poke around the web server manually, just in case. So you can see this is the SolidState website. It looks pretty static. So apparently they're a security team. They have skills. We have some very nice images here. This is real hacking, especially this. Click menu, and it just brings us to different parts on this page. So this looks pretty empty. So we're gonna run a derb. I'm just going to use the common word list, and you can see there's not really anything interesting. These are all just things you'd see on any web server. There's not going to be anything really of interest here. We can look at it just to be thorough, and you can just see there's a bunch of stuff we don't want to concern ourselves with. So moving on to our port scan, we can see that obviously we're going to be dealing with some sort of mailing service because we have these two ports. And what we're going to do is that, let's see how close this is to being done. Just about done. When it returns our banners, we're going to start our reconnaissance on the specific version of mail server. So we'll look for CVEs, we'll look for default passwords, we'll look for any way we can leverage these services to get a shell. And this is good enumeration. So you always want to include this TAC SV here for service versions. And you can see we've got all our versions here. So we have an updated version of OpenSSH. We have James SMTP, Apache, James POP3. Okay, and James something, and then 4555, which is still unknown really. So what I'm going to do is, because I see this service version popping up a lot, I'm going to Google, or I'll do a search exploit for James SMTP 2.3.2. And you can see there's a CVE here with remote command execution. And if we look at this, hang on, user share exploit delete. And if we look at this script, it's pretty simple. It says info only works in default installation. Okay, we can verify this. Example pass that will automatically execute payload on some action sc bash completion.d and this other path here. So let's go ahead and explain this exploit. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to take this string payload and it's going to, first of all, it's going to log into the remote administration tool with the default credentials root and root. This is just passing the IP through the command line. You can see it's gonna connect to port 4555. So this tells us that port 4555 is the administration tool. It's gonna log in with the default credentials. Then it's gonna create a user with this name. And here's where the exploit gets a little more complicated and very interesting. So when James SMTP, or when this remote administration tool creates a user, it doesn't filter out this parent directory symbol here. These things. So it allows us to make a new user called /bash_completion.d back several directories, which means that we can, when we send mail to this user, it will put it inside of a file inside of this location, and then which will be automatically run because as it's set up here. Example pass out automatically execute the payload on some action, and in this case the action is someone logging in to the box. So obviously someone could log in over SSH. So if we log in as SSH and we send an email with a payload to this username we create outside of the file root, then it will run our commands. So we need credentials. So let's connect, since we saw that the default password and username for James SMTP was root and root, let's try those on the server. Again, we know the remote administration port is 45555 because the exploit said so. You could also Google it. And it says enter your login and password, root, and we are logged in. So if we type help, we see we have several handy commands. We can list users, we can add a user, which is what the exploit uses, and we can change passwords. So let's list users, and you see, sorry, I already did the box, so this is here. Sorry about that, but pretend this one doesn't exist, okay? So we have James, Thomas, John, Mindy, and mail admin. So let's change all these passwords. Okay, that doesn't matter because the mail admin user is irrelevant. So now that we've completed this, let us log into POP3 and read the inboxes of each of these accounts, James, Thomas, John, and Mindy, and see what's inside. So we connect to the POP3 port 110 with Telnet, and we wait for the prompt to say that the server is ready for us to log in. Okay, it's ready, so user James password, and it says welcome James. So now that we're logged in, we can list messages in the inbox, and you see we have 0. So obviously this account is useless, so we're gonna log in again and check the next user. And for sake of time, you would go through Thomas and John, but the one we want is Mindy. So again, for your sanity, I'm not going to go through all of them. Welcome Mindy. And you see we have 2 messages. And if we want to display the contents, retrieve. The first one says, Dear Mindy, welcome to SolidState Security Cyber Team. We're delighted for joining us, blah, 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 blah. Looking forward to having you on the team. Okay, that's very nice. And the second one says, here are your SSH credentials to access the system. Remember to reset your password after the first login. Your access is restricted at the moment. Feel free to contact the administrator. Okay. So some sort of jail we're probably going to be in. But the point is we can SSH the box. So let's copy this password and log in over SSH. And you see we're logged in. So you can see the user.txt. Here's the flag, very nice. But if we try to run anything else, you can see it's all restricted. And this is because we are in a rbash shell, which literally stands for restricted bash. So now what we're going to want to do is, now that we have credentials, we're going to want to use the exploit that we found earlier in order to successfully gain that code execution. Hang on a second. So what we're going to do is go back to this terminal here. We're going to take this path, copy it, and we're going to move this file somewhere easier to work. So we moved it into james_exploit.py. We're going to edit this file. Sorry, we're not in the desktop. Okay, and now what we want to do is, the credentials were the same, so we don't need to change those. But what we do want to change is the payload. So if we go into insert mode here, we want an actual shell. We don't want to just read the flag. So, and this is our method of escaping the jail. Instead of being in an rbash shell, we're going to spawn a regular binsh shell, so that we'll have access to the full set of commands. This is my IP address on this host-only network, and we'll use port 4444. So now what it's going to do is it's going to create the user with this name. It's going to send our payload to it, which will automatically be run because we put it inside of the directory etc bin_completion.d. If you don't know about bash completion, I suggest you read about it online. It's quite interesting. So now if we run this, sorry about that, forgot the IP. You can see it showing us progress connecting to the James Remote Administration tool. Creating user, connecting to the server. All very nice. We're waiting to say it's finished. Sending payload, done, and it will be executed once someone logs in. So we'll set up to receive the shell. So remember, the bash completion will only run when someone logs in over SSH. So we can just log in as Mindy again. And you can see we have received our shell. So now that we've received our shell, we can do a number of things to get root on this box. So if you just run ID, you can see we're only Mindy. But now we can actually do stuff because we're not in the restricted shell anymore. So what we're going to do is go to the temp directory, and then we're going to upload this handy privilege escalation script that I want to introduce to you guys. Oh, I have to run this as root, but inside this directory I have Linux priv checker. I'll just use a different port for sake of time. And now now that we're in the temp directory, we can wget the script. And all we're doing is we're hosting the files from that directory, and we're just grabbing them from the box. And if we run this file, oh, sorry, it didn't grab it correctly. I forgot the port. Now you can see it got it. I guess it should have run a gotten myself a TTY shell here, but whatever. You do what you can. Okay, and you can see that script ran pretty fast. So we're going to look at the output a little bit. There's a lot of stuff. You can see some kernel exploits. This is a really cool one, but we'll have to look at that later. Installed tools for exploit building. Stuff owned by root, it looks like. Config files. Whole bunch of stuff. And if we go to this section further up, you can see how this gets kind of messy sometimes. But these scripts are handy sometimes. So, world writable files. We see this Python script owned by root, which is /opt/temp.py. So that could definitely be a method for privilege escalation. This other one is something random. We see the password file. Looking at the cron tabs. The networking. And you can see it really grabs a bunch of stuff. So let's examine that Python file we found, because if it's owned by root and it's a Python script, then we definitely want to examine that. So you can see temp.py is indeed there. And you can see it's owned by root. So what we're going to do is, since it's writable, we're going to make our own temp.py on our box, and then we're gonna put it inside this directory, and then we're going to run it. So this is a pretty easy privilege escalation. So we need the same, we're going to use the same name. Oh, we could do this actually. -E for execute. but this time it'll be run as root since the Python file is owned by root. Okay. Yep, everything's correct. Sudo python tac-m oh, my bad. So you can see that's listening. And now if we go back to our shell, we have to go to a writable directory. So let's go to temp. We're going to retrieve the script from my box. And now that there's no other file in here named that, this should work fine. Okay, and now you see it'll do exactly what we want it to. So, we'll start another listener. So you can see our file's in here. It is indeed owned by root. And now we just have to wait for the cron job to execute it. So we're waiting for the root cron job, which we can't actually have permission to verify is our thing, to run this Python file. There is a way to verify that a cron job is running as root. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but this is where you kind of have to consider context, and obviously if there's a writable Python file owned by root, it's pretty obvious to tell that there's going to be something running it, and it's a privilege escalation method. It's kind of like the CTF kind of mindset. It's good to develop sometimes. So you can see we got a connection, meaning that the cron job ran our script. And if we do ID, you can see we are root. There's a flag, and congratulations, you finished the box. And now what we can do is so if you run this command here, you'll be able to view the cron tabs that are scheduled for root. And the syntax here is every 3 minutes m run the script temp.py. And that's how we were able to get our privilege escalation, by editing that file. So this box was really fun for me when I first did it. Obviously, there's a lot of trial and error with this thing. Like, the exploit's a little finicky. You gotta be, and there's so many ways you can get the flag, considering you could put anything you want into the Python file. But keep in mind that cron jobs are a very realistic thing, and misconfiguring them is unfortunately something that's going to happen a lot. So, until then, I hope you guys learned something. Quick note, I think I'll be doing just pounding out some really easy videos on some really easy boxes, just in case people maybe haven't done a box at all yet and need something place to get started. So if you have any other boxes you want me to do, leave it in the comment section, I'll check it out. Other than that, I'll see you guys later.